Hello, glad you can join us. Here's what we have for you this Tuesday. An outpouring of grief for 3 junior hockey players.
It broke my heart. There has been frequent accidents there.
What the investigation is uncovering and how the community is coping.
9 out of 10 Canadian adults have a modifiable risk factor.
Are you at risk of heart disease?
We want to celebrate each one of them and at the same time celebrate a whole community.
Plus, a CFL legend kicks off a new celebration of Black history.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
It's a tragedy. It's the nightmare of every parent, every teammate, family, friends, and my heart goes out to obviously to the families of the victims and the team.
A message from the Prime Minister today to the small community of Stavely, Alberta, hurting as residents try to make sense of the tragic deaths of 3 junior hockey players. The teens were on their way to practice with the Mustangs when a small passenger car collided with a gravel truck. CTV's Kathy Lee is in Stavely. All right, Kathy, talk to us about the investigation into the fatal crash and how folks are coping.
Sandy, the population of Stavely is just over 500 people. It's one of those small southern Alberta towns where everybody knows everybody, and the deaths of these 3 young players is hitting everyone really hard. This is a memorial outside the Stavely Agricultural Society, the arena where the Southern Alberta Mustangs played. The jerseys of 17-year-old Caden Fine, who is from Birmingham, Alabama, and 18-year-old JJ Wright and Cameron Casorso, both from Kamloops, BC, have been laid out. Community members have been dropping by, lighting candles, dropping off flowers, and paying tribute to the 3 players.
It broke my heart to find out that these hockey players, so young, with bright futures, lost their lives so young.
These kids become part of our family. They're just, yes, they're part of the community, but they're also part of our families too.
The crash happened yesterday morning as the players were on their way to practice when they collided with a semi-truck pulling gravel. This was just outside of the town on a major highway in southern Alberta. RCMP said this morning the investigation is still ongoing, but do not believe this is criminal in nature.
That passenger vehicle would have had to come across 2 lanes of Highway 2 to get into the median, and then proceed across the other 2 lanes to get into that entrance to Stavely.
RCMP say the driver of the semi is okay. Some community members have complained about the dangers of the intersection in the past. The team did release a statement saying they are family, and right now their family is hurting. Sandy.
Kathy Lee in Stavely, Alberta.
I understand that there is an agreement to observe a moment of silence for the victims of the tragic accident that occurred in Alberta.
As you heard, a moment of silence in the House of Commons today for the young men who were killed yesterday. Their deaths, a reminder of another devastating tragedy involving the Humboldt Broncos hockey team, who sent their condolences. The Broncos posting, "There are no words, only heavy hearts." 16 people were killed and 13 were injured in Saskatchewan when a truck ran a stop sign and crashed into a bus carrying the team in 2018. Well, one day after the arrest in British Columbia of 3 foreign nationals on suspicion of extortion shootings, Premier David Eby is promising that police will do a better job of cracking down on this escalating crisis. So far this year, as many as 50 extortions in Surrey alone. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson listened in as the Premier spoke. And Andrew, what was his message?
Sandy, David Eby is acknowledging the police response to this crisis hasn't been good enough and says many people in Surrey are simply too scared to go about their daily lives.
It's like a slow motion terror attack. People are afraid to leave their homes. They're afraid to attend their businesses. They're afraid to do business. They're afraid to celebrate when they have big accomplishments that may draw attention.
The extortion attempts often start with a call or text demanding money from primarily South Asian business owners. If they refuse to pay up, their families are threatened and their business or home is targeted by gunfire. But when victims call police, the Premier says sometimes they're being let down.
When I meet with police leadership, they assure me that they are on top of this, that people are receiving the best possible response, that there are no additional resources that are needed. But when I meet with community leadership, they say that that is not their experience.
The latest shooting was Sunday morning when a Surrey home was sprayed with bullets as people slept inside. Two 21-year-olds and a 19-year-old were arrested and each charged with one count of discharging a firearm. Federal data shows many of the people who have been charged in these extortion shootings are foreign nationals who then apply for refugee status. The Premier calls that a loophole that has to be closed. Eby says there will be a meeting between police leadership across the country in the next 2 weeks to improve coordination between multiple provinces where this is a problem and locally where a terrorized community is desperate for the threats and the violence to stop. Sandy.
All right, Andrew, thank you for this. A delay in the sexual assault trial of billionaire Canadian auto parts magnate Frank Stronach. Proceedings were to begin this morning, but Stronach's lawyer asked for more time after what she calls voluminous new information that was received over the last few weeks. The 93-year-old faces 12 charges involving 7 complaints for alleged incidents dating back to the 1970s. Stronach, who denies all allegations, will also stand trial in another case later this year. Well, investigators looking for clues in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie, say that they found signs of forced entry at her Arizona home and that the 84-year-old was taken against her will.
We don't know where she is, so we're like any investigation. Just start from the point of where we last saw her, and we work out. And we are working as far out as we can go.
Guthrie was last seen Saturday night at her home in the Tucson area. She was reported missing Sunday. Guthrie's family says she must be found soon because she could die without her medication. Now, a frightening health statistic to share with you. Every 7 minutes, a Canadian dies from heart disease or stroke. And a new study suggests it's because we're simply not doing enough to stay healthy. CTV's Heather right now on what that means and what you can do to turn things around. Hey, Heather.
Sandy, there are some alarming statistics in this new study, and while some risk factors like age and genetics cannot be changed, many others can.
What started as mild heartburn suddenly became much more serious for Elena Trainoff.
I woke up one night in the middle of the night with crushing chest pain, and even then I thought, you know, I'm too young for this to be a heart situation.
At just 40 years old, Trainoff had 100% blockage of one artery and partial blockage of 2 others. She was taken in for emergency surgery. Nearly 11 years later, Trainoff credits changes to her lifestyle for keeping her healthy.
I quit smoking, I lost weight, I changed my eating habits, I radically reduced the amount of stress that I was under.
According to a new report from the Heart and Stroke Foundation, 9 in every 10 Canadians have at least one risk factor for heart disease and stroke. Lifestyle risks include smoking, poor diet, stress, lack of sleep, and lack of physical activity. And while some risk factors like genetics, gender, age, and air pollution can't be changed, experts say 80% of premature heart disease can be prevented with lifestyle changes.
We're surrounded by unhealthy food options. We aren't as physically active as we once were. Most people work in sedentary jobs. So for those reasons, it can be more difficult, and we have to make conscious effort to live healthfully.
And while some risk factors like smoking are declining, others are on the rise. For example, 1 in 4 grade 12 students say they vape, while the number of Canadian adults living with high blood pressure has increased every year since 2000.
While the death rate from heart disease and stroke has decreased by about 80% over the last 70 years, these diseases still cause 1 in every 5 deaths in Canada. Sandy.
All right, sobering information there. Alarming information also from a new study about the food that we eat. Ultra-processed foods like pop and sweets are, quote, carefully engineered to encourage consumption and should be regulated like cigarettes. The study in an academic health journal looked at the design, marketing, and distribution of ultra-processed foods and how they mirror tactics used by the tobacco industry. The Millbank Quarterly concludes that these foods should be considered addictive as they optimize craving, rapid intake, repeated use, and come with some very serious health risks. Well, now Ottawa is about to get serious about the auto industry with the release of a new strategy. The plan is expected to include better market access to companies building cars in this country and an increase in the number of electric vehicles on the road. CTV's Abigail Beeman is on this story for us today. Okay, Abigail, so what's in the works?
Sandy, several sources tell CTV News to expect the new auto strategy this Thursday, while the industry minister says she was in touch with Ontario's premier about it this morning.
The auto strategy coming this week.
Heading into cabinet, ministers weren't shutting down the idea that incentivizing EV purchases may be back on the table.
We'll have more news on that to come.
So it sounds like you're bringing it back.
We'll have more news on that to come.
Nor whether the EV mandate, currently on pause, will remain.
The auto strategy is being worked on, and these are different conversations we're having.
The industry minister said workers impacted by the loss of the third shift at the GM plant in Oshawa are at the core of new investments.
It's important because we know our auto workers are right now feeling the brunt of the U.S. unjustified and unjustifiable tariffs.
Industry experts say it's not just the uncertainty of American tariffs that is a problem, but a lack of information about the deal to allow 49,000 Chinese EVs into the market during the Prime Minister's trip to Beijing.
So we don't know what the parameters of that are, the guardrails around that are. So as opposed to more uncertainty, we need an auto strategy that provides certainty.
Incentives are important because today the current regime is to mandate the production side of it and to punish producers who don't achieve a certain percentage. If you're not addressing the demand side, then you're missing the point.
Industry experts predict big changes coming to the EV mandate, expected to be announced within the new auto strategy as soon as this week, and are hopeful that it will allow the industry to target Canadian demand after being hammered by White House tariffs. Sandy?
All right, Abigail, thank you. Abigail is in Ottawa. Manitoba's premier is in the remote community of Churchill today to hear from locals. Now, Ottawa is considering a major expansion of the area into a year-round hub connecting Western Canada to the north and the Atlantic through Hudson's Bay. And it means not just tourism, but jobs. CTV's Alison Bamford is in Churchill, Manitoba. And Alison, tell us what happened today.
Sandy, the Premier's trip really focused on three things: tourism, marine conservation, and local perspective, and how they all fit within the Port of Churchill Plus project. The project that's under consideration would connect Western Canadian goods to the north and other global markets through Hudson Bay, while bringing jobs back into the remote community. It's an exciting opportunity for residents we've talked to, but they're also concerned with protecting the tourism industry and the environment. Premier Wab Kinew believes a balance can be struck, today announcing funding to explore the possibility of a national marine conservation area within the western part of Hudson Bay. The province investing $250,000 alongside environmental group Oceans North, who is committing $1 million.
As we pursue the economic, as we pursue the international priorities to grow Manitoba into an amazing future economy that we can all envision for ourselves, it's also about making sure that when we take one step in that direction, we're taking another step in the direction of the environment.
The Premier says the conservation area would protect the environment while supporting economic development and the northern tourism industry. This is just one piece of the puzzle that needs to be sorted as talks continue of the Churchill Plus project. The province is also working with Ottawa's Major Projects Office to develop a report that the Premier says would flesh out the numbers in order to make this project work. That report is expected in April. Sandy?
All right, Alison, thank you. And as you can see, Alison is in cold, chilly Churchill. All right, well, Canada paused today to remember a young soldier lost far from home. The body of 24-year-old gunner Sebastien Halmagine from Hamilton, Ontario, was repatriated at CFB Trenton. A large procession followed along the Highway of Heroes, a final journey marked by silence, flags, and respect. Halmagine died while deployed in Latvia with the Canadian Armed Forces, serving as part of NATO's Operation Reassurance mission in Eastern Europe. Coming up, strengthening trade ties.
Given the moment that we're in, everything's on the table.
South Korea's pitch to Canada and what it could mean for jobs.
If you would please unveil the portrait.
A historic moment for Stephen Harper with the unveiling of the former Prime Minister's official portrait in Ottawa ahead of the 20th anniversary of the election of his first Conservative government.
Had anyone told me that I would be standing at this podium today for this event, I would have been quite simply in utter disbelief.
Harper's portrait will hang on the walls of the House of Commons alongside the 21 former prime ministers before him. Well, Canadian officials are still in South Korea building relations and exploring new trade opportunities. Conglomerate Hanwha wants to sell Ottawa submarines, but that's not all they have in mind. CTV's Judy Trin is traveling with the Canadian contingent. Okay, Judy, what else is South Korea pitching?
Sandy, Hanwha is also pitching making armored vehicles in Canada to offset the pain in the auto industry.
Morning, sir. Good morning.
The South Koreans showing the federal government's point man on defense procurement what more could be made in Canada. Hanwha says the howitzer armored vehicles used by some European forces and needed by Canadian soldiers could be made by auto workers in Ontario facing job losses.
The manufacturing automated lines that we have now, we could take that here and use the technology that we have and implement that in Canada for the development of these vehicles.
Hanwha did something similar in Australia. It built a factory outside Melbourne after Ford and Toyota shuttered their plants.
Given the moment that we're in, everything's on the table. So, we're not, we're looking at all the opportunities that we can get our hands on.
Hanwha is considering linking the howitzers to its bid to build up to a dozen submarines for the Royal Canadian Navy. One of its partners is also pitching building the torpedoes that go in the KSS-3 sub in Canada. The country's top naval commander says Korean soldiers will help train Canadians, and trade will strengthen ties between old allies.
Secretary Pugh, as the Secretary Fuhr and Ministry of National Defense An has mentioned, Canadian forces deployed more than 26,000 personnel into the Korean War. And the Korean people do not forget the sacrifices that the Canadian forces had during the Korean War. Korean citizens are always thankful for this.
Regardless of whether it wins the submarine contract, Hanwha says it's committed to expanding its presence in Canada. Just this week, it opened a Canadian headquarters in Ottawa. Sandy.
Okay, Judy, thank you for this. Still ahead, you'll meet the Australian teenager who's being hailed as a hero. How he saved his stranded family with what's being called a superhuman swim. French police raided the offices of Elon Musk's social media platform X in Paris today. The search is part of an investigation into allegations that include spreading child pornography images and sexual deepfakes. Authorities are looking into whether the platform was complicit in spreading the images and other offenses, including Holocaust denial. Prosecutors are also seeking interviews with Elon Musk. X has previously described the French investigation as an attack on free speech. Now, Prince Edward broke his silence on the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, becoming the first royal to speak publicly about it.
I think it's all really important always to remember the victims and who are the victims in all this.
The King's brother's remarks follow a fresh release of Epstein documents linked to his brother Andrew, the former Prince and Duke of York, who faces growing pressure to give evidence over what he knows about the late sex offender. Andrew has denied any wrongdoing. And a remarkable story of survival and courage in Australia. A 13-year-old boy being called a hero after he swam for hours to get help for his family who had been swept out to sea in rough waters.
I think at one point I was thinking of Thomas the Tank Engine, trying to get the happiest things in my head.
It took 4 hours for Austin Appleby to reach shore while his mother, brother, and sister clung to 2 paddle boards. Their oars were lost, drifting. There they were, some 14 kilometers into open water.
I had to untie the life jacket and I had to just swim to shore.
Austin initially took an inflatable kayak, but as it took on water, he abandoned it and his life jacket and swam the last 4 kilometers. It took 2 hours to reach land. Austin called for help, and after his family was rescued, they were all taken to hospital and later released. A special Black History Month celebration in Halifax today. CFL great Michael "Pinball" Clemens and a plane load of friends flew east to honor the legacy of one of the earliest Black settlements in Canada. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth now on the Hall of Famer and his mission to trace the footsteps of Black Canadian history. Hi, Paul.
Sandy, it's called Legacy Liftoff, the Pinball Foundation honoring Black History Month and supporting the historic community of Africville. Mike "Pinball" Clemens, along with roughly 150 friends and family, touched down in Halifax to celebrate Black History Month.
Black history reminds me that I am standing on the shoulders of all of those before me.
This was also an opportunity for the Pinball Foundation to make its mark in Nova Scotia. The foundation provides financial assistance for young people in need.
We actually scholarship 100 young people a year, pay for books and tuition. We mentor them along the way, and then we get them a job within 45 days of graduation.
Clemens says this trip is a journey, a meaningful connection to Black history in Nova Scotia. The Pinball Foundation announced a $250,000 donation to support the Africville Museum, located on the site of the historic Black community that existed in Halifax from the early 1800s until the 1960s.
Every little bit of financial support to the Africville Museum is significant. You know, with our scholarship program, with our new marine sailing program for African, Nova Scotian, and Indigenous youth and people who are disabled, we're just so thrilled, you know, to be able to continue those programs and make Africville really reach its potential.
For every young person that you see that has success. So we want to celebrate each one of them and at the same time celebrate a whole community.
Clemens and his foundation hope this is the start of a new tradition. He'd like to come back again, perhaps once a year, and offer support for other programs closely connected to the African Nova Scotia community. Sandy.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Bye for now. We'll see you tomorrow, we hope. Have a lovely evening.